For whatever reason, I've still not talked about Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. Wowzers, what a book. I see why so many people were recommending this to me. Like, I've had multiple people, like when I revealed this was in my 24 reads for 2024 challenge, people right from the jump are like, oh, you're gonna like this. And I see why. Truly, if you're looking for a story about the trials and tribulations of being a young person in love, particularly a young black person in love, like, it's got it all. Like, it's so fabulous. It was everything that I wanted normal people to be and more. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm becoming someone who is increasingly influenced by testimonials on the covers, only if it's an actual established author that I'm familiar with. If it's like a newspaper, like, oh, the Sunday Times says this, I don't care because I don't know that person. But like, for instance, on this, we see like, oh, Yagyasi has an opinion about it. Well, she's fabulous, talented author. Homegoing was so incredible. So that automatically colours my perception of this book. And would you believe it, they're both talented, incredible Ghanaian authors writing about race. What's not to love? While it is a beautiful tale about what it means to be living in the UK as a black person or as an immigrant or like second, third generation of immigrant parents, it's also incredibly Southeast London. Like, this might be the most like local homegrown book that I can think of. Like, I can't really point towards another story that made me think like, wow, this is really a story about like home, like specifically my home. Like, it feels very Southeast London, and I don't know how to articulate that vibe, but you just feel it. Like, other people from my neck of the woods, I'm sure if you've read this book, you're like, oh yeah, this is very Southeast London in the best way. And it's not just the name dropping, because yeah, there's lots of like geographic names and places and transportations, like getting on certain tube lines, going to certain stations. It's not just that does help, but there's a vibe to it as well. There's a state of mind that just feels so London, and it was really coming through to me with this book. And it gave me, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but it gave me such a personal connection with the story, because obviously I can't connect to what it means to be black because I'm white, but there was this other way that made it relatable to me, and I really, it made me feel special. Can we get into the second person of it all? Because what was that? I can't think of any other story I've read that's so dominantly second person, and I vacillated between like adoring it and also being like, what is this? Like, it's simultaneously why I'm giving this a high rating, but also why I'm not giving it a 5-star rating. Like, I'd probably say around like 4.75-ish. Like, I really liked it, but at the same time, I don't know, it was a bit the history of the world, I guess. You know the old YouTube video where it's like you're on a rock floating in space? Like, it was very that. Like, oh, why can't he leave the house? The sun is a deadly laser. You know, it was a bit of that. Like, please let me know if you know what I'm talking about, because the second person, it somehow made and broke the story for me. Like, I was like, oh, this is so wacky, and yet I love it. This is a weird comparison, but it's almost like a little bit of This Is How You Lose the Time War, where it's clear the author has made a strong creative decision that makes the story stand out, like, especially from the perspective of this being like a debut author. But it's also like wacky. And I think that's why the book isn't too long, because the author probably knows, like, if this book had even like 100 more pages, it would begin to grate just a little bit, because the style is that interesting and also jarring. I don't know. You know what I'm so here for as well? Sharing your references and your sources of inspiration. So often in this book, there's so much name dropping to popular authors, films, stories, lots of music references, and all of it was so unapologetically black, and a lot of it was like black British. And I was like, yes, do more of this. Like, why aren't authors like grandstanding about these are the things that made me who I am? Like, I am this creative intellectual because of all these other great people who are in my like sphere of influence, you know? Like, this book has so many references to Zadie Smith, and I was just sitting there like, ugh, I need to get into some Zadie Smith, because I still, to this day, have not read a single one of her books, and I don't know why that's the case, but even at the start of the book, we have a quote from Zadie Smith. We have, "There was an inevitability about their road towards one another, which encouraged meandering along the route." That's a fabulous quote. Again, Zadie Smith, like, it's on site. I'm going to be reading your work very soon. But for books like this to really transcend into something that is memorable and impactful, you really need to get into the minutiae of a feeling that either no other popular book is talking about, and it's something that directly you can relate to. And I think for me, it was that idea of being a marginalized person who is so upset about doing the wrong thing that you are actually doing the wrong thing by being so tentative about it and not just living your freedom and being who you want to be. The title itself, Open Water, is a reference to the fact that our male lead is drowning in this open water, even though he has someone in his life who really cares about him and would hold him so that he wouldn't drown and would save his life if he only made it known that he wanted to be helped. Instead, he is sort of in this downward spiral of not figuring out that there are people out there who really care for him. And wow, how deep, how beautiful, what a book. So yes, that was Open Water. A book that is so much more fabulous than it had any right to be for something as concise and unassuming as it outwardly appears. Go read it. It's fab.